Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So today I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because we're going to be taking a look at Namco System 23 and Super System 23 on the most recent version of MAME.277 because we're all waiting for the big .278 update, but I wanted to take a look at Namco System 23 again because compared to the last time I covered this, maybe 6 months or 8 months ago, there's been some fundamental improvements. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a lot better than we previously had, so we're definitely going to be taking a look at some of the games that work well and some of the games that kind of work. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, Time Crisis 2 has seen some massive improvements compared to the last time we took a look at this. Now all of the layering of the enemies as well as the polygons is correct. Last time we played Namco System 23 and Time Crisis 2, there would be some definite layering issues as far as where everything would appear on the screen. You'd have enemies behind and in front of things that they should have been reversed on, and some of the polygons at the bottom of the screen would basically stretch into infinity. You could play the game from start to finish, you could see the credits scroll, but unfortunately it would be relatively ugly. And while the graphics here are not 100% complete, they are so much better than they were previously, and that is just a huge upgrade compared to where we were maybe half a year ago. And that's just awesome because these arcade cabinets, while still relatively common, are very complex, and the Namco System 23 and Super System 23 hardware definitely loves to break. I have all of one arcade board for this system in my closet, the game you're seeing here, Time Crisis 2, and mine needs some repairs because it's got some graphical glitches, and honestly it may never be a thing that I'm able to repair. And even though this did get ported to PlayStation 2, it was basically a completely remade version of the game with technically a lot better graphics, but I honestly prefer the arcade original. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me, Time Crisis 2, Namco System 23 or PlayStation 2, I would be curious. And the other nice thing is the sound of this game is quite buttoned up as well, so we're going to do an early soundtrack sample because there's only so many games where the sound is anything other than garbage, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds and I'll be right back to show you more games that currently work on MAME.277.
Action! Go! Continue.
I mean, that sounds like Time Crisis 2 to me, so that's all you really need. Now, moving over to another game that works relatively well. This is 500 GP. Obviously, it is a motorcycle racing game, also made by Namco. And you get this really fun intro. Almost looks like an FMV, but it really is just some JPEGs over top some footage of the actual game running somewhere in the engine. But it does work. It is recognizable as a game, and when you get into the game, everything seems to be running perfectly fine, except for one very obvious issue. That tachometer for the speedometer right there is definitely not supposed to be in the center of the screen. It really isn't going to affect your playability whatsoever, but obviously that's not something you want to see when you're actually playing an arcade game. So again, Namco System 23 in some ways is shaping up extremely well, and in other ways definitely has some areas to be ironed out. But don't take that as any sort of knock against the emulation or the people that make it. I am always highly impressed that these things work in the first place. I'm just pointing out where there's some obvious things going on, and with that little dial in the middle of the screen, that is not where Namco decided to put it. But as far as the controls here, they feel relatively good as well. Some of the other games I'm going to show you in this video, the analog values seem to go from absolute zero to maxed out in both directions almost immediately, and that is something you see in a lot of analog games in MAME. It takes a little while for all of those inputs to actually get dialed in because you have that range of analog inputs, and if it just basically goes from zero to maxed out all at the same time, you go from going completely straight to banking on that bike or car about as fast as you possibly can, and that definitely makes the game that much less playable. But as far as the graphics are concerned, everything looks good to me, but it's probably been 15 or 20 years since I've actually seen a cabinet for this out in the wild, so honestly it really is hard for me to judge. But this is another one of the games that actually has sound that is pleasing to the ear, because a lot of the other games have either doubling of the sound or just some glitches that aren't great, so go ahead and listen. I'll be right back with 4 more games to show you. I mean, sounds good to my ear, and again, the fact that this is even playable in the first place is definitely an improvement over the last time we took a look at Namco System 23 and Super System 23. I remember the last time I tested this game, maybe a year ago, I think it froze maybe in the first 15 or 20 seconds, which is still an issue you can face in some of these games, but not in MotoGP. Now, moving over to Angler King, a super fun fishing game, maybe not on the level of Sega bass fishing, but still a good time. This is one that you can get into. You can see the graphics actually draw onto the screen. While there's definitely a few visual glitches here, definitely recognizable as a lure and some sharks coming into the frame. So that is definitely an improvement as well, because the last time I tried this, I couldn't even get it to run. You can see that there's some weird black bar at the middle of the screen, basically at that horizon line. Definitely not supposed to be there, but again, this is looking relatively good, and definitely everything on the screen is a fish. You can at least tell what you're looking at, because trust me, some of the other games I tested, the graphics are so corrupted, you have no idea what it was you were actually supposed to be seeing on screen. Now, unfortunately though, something about the inputs in this game, no matter how I try to dial them in, I really can't get the game to do much of anything. It will go into the level, you will see the play field, and I love that there's basically an alligator infested swamp here, and you can even cast out, but from there is no input that I could dial in that would make anything be controllable. If you saw that quick glimpse of that woman's face, definitely some shading and lighting issues here as well. So this is one where obviously the emulation is getting along as far as drawing the graphics, but there was no sound really whatsoever, and as far as the controls are concerned, they either aren't emulated whatsoever right now, or they're not emulated properly, because again, it's not really anything that I can play, unfortunately. So if you're looking forward to playing Angler King, definitely still gonna have to wait on that one, but I'm sure maybe in the next 6 months, year, 18 months, you will see more improvements on the Namco System 23, at least I hope so. Now moving over to Motocross Go, this is a game, again, that is running, but this is one where I always have freezing issues on. Seems to be a little bit more consistent than it used to be, but again, you're going to see within this capture, the game basically froze up on me and I had to quit out. This is another game earlier, like I talked about with the analog values. When you move left and move right, basically the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to immediately turn as hard as the game will allow you in either direction. When you're actually selecting your bikes here, if I just took a screenshot of this, you really would have no idea that this was incomplete emulation of Namco System 23. As we jump into the actual playfield here, watch the bike right now. The minute I try to turn whatsoever, it immediately banks left and right. It could just need a dead zone adjustment, but I did play around in the analog values, and I really couldn't dial anything in that was working for me. That's not to say I'm not impressed by this, definitely is working better than it was before, but this is something that I basically classify on the borderline of playability. The controls are going to be a little bit off, but it really is the freezing issue that's going to keep you from actually enjoying this game, because if a game freezes and you can't see the credits, it really isn't classified as playable in my opinion. But it's just a showcase of how good the emulation is getting. It definitely is a fun time, and this is one, honestly, I have never seen this arcade cabinet in arcades, and I've never played it. So if you played this one, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you thought of it in arcades, because I would be curious, because every once in a while there is a game I feature on the channel in emulation that I've never actually seen a cabinet for, and Motocross Go is definitely one of those, but it seems fun, maybe a little bit more B tier compared to something like Dirt Dash or even Ridge Racer, but it has a fun vibe, and it really does make me want to play more of it. And you'll see here, at least in this footage, everything seems to be going perfectly fine, but in about 15-20 seconds you're going to see where this actually ends up being left off, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get an entire lap in, because this game is tricky in emulation. It makes you think everything is running perfectly fine, you're just having fun, and then suddenly you'll see here in about 5 seconds the game is just going to lock up, and that's about as far as I could get in it. So it's definitely improved since the last time I tested it, but unfortunately this freezing still happens. That's about as far as we could get in the game. Now moving to a game that I have played once and absolutely loved, and unfortunately isn't ready for playability yet in main.277, is Gunman Wars. This is absolutely a vibe. You'll see here in the introductory sequence, kind of feels a little bit like Shenmue as far as the city's layout is concerned. That's what it's always reminded me of, but unfortunately you'll see here there's some graphics that are just completely missing, because there should be items within the actual play world. So this is a situation where apparently some of the emulation on some of the calls to the hardware on the System 23 just aren't yet complete, or they have some sort of bugs or glitches in them, because again, you should be seeing more than just this camera pan right here. When you actually try to get into the game, you get a little menu, and then the screen for me went black, and I never got any other graphics to draw to the screen. And it's one of those things, maybe an earlier version of MAME did a little bit more. Sometimes you do get regressions, but this is just a game that I wish everyone could play, and unfortunately, at least today, isn't going to happen. But it really makes me optimistic for the future that we'll get these things. But if there was another Namco System 23 board that I would add to my collection, Gunman Wars definitely would be it. It's a ton of fun, and I'll try to leave a link in the description below to an actual playthrough on real hardware so you can see exactly what it's supposed to be gameplay wise, because obviously from this you really can't see much. When we actually get in to start the game, the graphics go absolutely haywire, unfortunately. Now the last game I'm going to take a look at here is Crisis Zone. This has some issues, and I'll explain what each one of them are. The one you're not going to hear because it is annoying is every single word being spoken right now doubles up in the sound effect. It basically has some imprecise sound emulation, and while it doesn't hurt your ears, it's absolutely annoying to listen to. But as far as the graphics drawing are concerned, they look quite good, and I would say this is probably the prettiest game on the Namco Super System 23. And again, it's another one that got ported to the PlayStation 2, but I still prefer the System 23 aesthetic. Those pixelated textures, a little bit more of a chunky polygon. It just has a vibe and a time and a place that I absolutely loved in arcades, and it's just one of those things. I love this era of 3D when you had that custom bespoke silicon in every single box, and it just looked different than what you saw at home. But as far as the intro is concerned, it seems to be running relatively full speed. And just so you know, for my test, I am on an i9-12900K overclocked on a water cooler, and I have a 3080 Ti, not that that really matters for MAME, along with 64 gigabytes of RAM. So some of the results you're seeing on my screen might not be what you see on yours, depending on what sort of CPU you have. But if you have tested these games, leave me a comment down below and tell me what CPU you have, what speed it's running at, and kind of the results you get, because I always love tracking these things. I only have my editing rig, so it's really hard for me to say how the results may vary because I only have one computer with one CPU to test against. But if you just looked at this here, you would assume once you got into the game, everything would be working perfectly fine, maybe running slightly slower, having some sound hitches, but otherwise something just like Time Crisis 2 that you could play and enjoy. Unfortunately, this has an aiming issue. It doesn't matter where you aim the reticle, your aim is basically going to be completely off, and there really doesn't seem to be any calibration that makes it work correctly, so it just needs a little bit more work on the aiming. But that's your tour of System 23 and Super System 23 on MAME.277. It definitely got a lot better since the last time I featured it, because I love going through some of the systems in MAME to show you just how good it can do. That's what I did today. But short of that, we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.